Hi folks, this is Vicky at patternprincess.com. Today I'm going to show you how to do the first few rows of the Footprints in the Sand semicircle shawl. It does have bobbles in it, and then also it's worked in double crochet, so it's actually easier than what it may look to do. I actually don't have the shawl here today to show you. I've shown you in the video here, I've shown you in the photos leading up to this. I do, thank goodness, have a video showing, I think from maybe it's row 6 or 7. I've done a couple rows actually working in the nice thin yarn. A few rows, and you'll be able to see the skein of yarn right after I show you this. But anyways, I wanted to show you in a little bit thicker yarn, because sometimes when you have a fine yarn, it's a number 2 fine yarn that made this shawl, it's hard to see the stitches. So I wanted to be able to do the first few rows here for you in a little bit. This is just Caron Simply Soft, but it's a little bit thicker, I think, and easier to see. But again, right after this is a video showing actually using the yarn and actually working on the shawl. The problem is I brought the shawl to work to show a co-worker, and well, it never made it back home. In fact, I had to take pictures of it for you using desk chairs and all kinds of things at work to try and get it, to lay nice and be, and that type of thing, so that you folks could see how it looks. So some of the photos, even, you'll notice it's like it's hanging against a wall and in one of the offices by a lamp and a mirror, but that's okay. I'm really, really glad she loves it, and it's beautiful on her. She has blonde hair, blue eyes, and it's just beautiful. So it always makes us happy when we are crocheters and people love the work that we make. So I'm going to start with my slip knot. And so the very first thing, now you could do here at this point, you could have done a magic circle, but I found with these shawls, I like to do the chain 4 and then you join it with a slip stitch. I just think it gives a little bit more stability to the whole thing. So 1, 2, 3, 4. There's our 4, and then we're going to go back into this first loop, and we're going to draw our yarn through and through this again. That creates a slip stitch, and then it also creates a circle. Now we have a circle to work in. Of course, sometimes it's hard to see. You kind of have to stick your hook. Once you stick your hook in there and you start working in there, there it is, you'll be able to see it. It's actually right there. Okay, there you go. Now you can see the circle. So anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to do a chain 3, which is going to count as a double crochet. 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to yarn over. We're going to go right in the next 7 stitches. We're going to work right in that circle. So we're going to go put our hook through the circle, yarn over, bring it through, and we're going to create 7 double crochets. So here's 1. There we go. Yarn over, put it through the circle, yarn over again, yarn over, go through 2 loops and 2 loops. So now we actually have 3. So it's 1, 2, 3. We're going to have a total of 8 double crochets. Remember, we're counting this 3 first chain stitches as a double crochet. So that's 3, 4, 5, whoopsies, 5, 6, and I'm actually going to catch that yarn in here now because it's bugging me. And I didn't catch all the yarn loops here. There we go. And I believe that this was 7. Now that I've talked in between here, I lost my count. I'm pretty sure that's 7. I'm going to count in a second here. 8. So let's make sure that we have 8 double crochet in this circle. So here's our first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And I kind of pulled them apart a little bit so you could see them. Okay? So that's actually our first round. So now we're going to turn this. After each row, you are going to turn it. Let me get the right one here. Okay. And again, we're going to do a chain 3. So 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to double crochet right back in that same stitch. There we go. And now in the next 7 stitches, we're going to do 2 double crochets in each stitch. So here's our first one, 2. So we're going to do this for each one. And I will have a stitch count chart for you on this too, because I did count in between each one to make sure I didn't skip loops, and I didn't want to have such a nice pretty thing be elongated the wrong way or have something happen. So I did count every single row. Okay, and we have this one more. See, we got the top chain right here, this top chain right here. From that initial chain 3, we have to go right in there. 1. Now, we should have 16 stitches. So let's count. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. Huh, look at that. I told you that was the top chain of the 3. It wasn't. That was still the top chain of this stitch. So that's why it's really good to count. Here's my top chain of the 3. See how smushed that got? How little? Right there is the one more. That's why it's really good to count. This is why it's imperative. So when somebody will say to me, oh, hey, I'm starting something and I worked on something and one side's, you know, it's going wonky on one side, not the other. Well, you might have slipped a stitch somewhere and it might be a habit that you're doing each row. Okay, so I bet you we have our stitch count now. And I, normally I should dub that out so not even tell you that I messed up, but I'm going to leave it in so that others can see that we're not all perfect. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. How about that? Now, doesn't that look nice? Okay, so we have the beginning slip stitch, we have row 1 down, and now row 2 down, and we have 16 stitches. And that's why it's really good to have our stitch count at the end of each row. Now, with row 3 is we're going to start our puff stitch, okay? And what's going to happen is you're going to end up adding in, so for each time we do each row is going to have 8 sections where you're going to do the 2 stitches together. You're always going to have that. So each row is always going to grow by 8 stitches, okay? So if you don't grow by 8 stitches, or if you grow by a different number than 8, then something's wrong. So you might have to recount your stitches in between. Because I had done that, I think twice on the shawl, where I had to take it out because I missed a stitch, or I added another stitch in extra. So that's why it's really important in our crochet. So anyway, so I'm going to turn this over. But then anyway, I should finish. So in between the areas where we do our 2 crochets together, each round we're going to end up adding, you will end up, by the time that you get to your double stitches, you'll have added a stitch in between each section, because as you look at the shawl, it becomes bigger and bigger, and each section is bigger, and there's like 8 different sections. So, okay, so now we're going to work row 3. We're going to do a chain 3, 1, 2, 3. We're going to yarn over, and right in that same stitch, we're going to work a puff stitch. So we're going to yarn over, bring it through, yarn over, put our hook back in, yarn over, bring it through, yarn over, put it back in, yarn over, bring it through, yarn over, put it back in, and yarn over, bring it through. There's 4, like half, almost double crochets on here, but we should have 9 loops on the hook. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, this might be hard for you to see, 8, 9, okay? I'm going to yarn over, and if I pull a little bit on this, okay, keep it taut, it helps us go through. And don't have your stitches real tight on your puff stitch either, because then it's going to be hard to get through, okay? So now we have a double crochet and a puff stitch. So now we're just going to do a double crochet in the next stitch. All right, and then in the following stitch, we're going to do a double crochet and a puff stitch. So it's a double crochet, and then our puff stitch again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and we come through, and then the yarn over like that ends it off, okay? I don't know if I showed you that on the beginning one. And then the next stitch is a double crochet. And then the following stitch, we have our double crochet and our puff stitch. So there we go with our double crochet, and then we have our puff stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we close that off. And then we yarn over, and then we do our double crochet, and then the next one we do our double crochet and then a puff stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, Let me see if I can bring this through. It's not wanting to sneak through. There's one little yarn. I can just barely see a little yarn hanging up. Sometimes you have to work it slowly like this because it just doesn't want to come. And sometimes you actually have to redo it. And I can't quite tell, so I'm going to redo it. This is how it goes. Because I just can't quite see it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see if we can get this through easier. There we go. Slipped right through. And there we go. And so I'm going to continue doing this pattern of 1 double crochet and then double crochet in the next stitch and a puff stitch. Okay, so I'm going to continue working this to the end, and we should have, when you're done, we should have, I got to look, 24 stitches, okay, between the double crochets and the puff stitch. You should have a total of 24 stitches. So I'm going to meet you right on the other side here. I'm going to keep working this, and I just got a few more to go. I'm going to meet you right back over here, okay? Okay, I just finished my row 3 over here, and again, and what I did is I ended up with a double crochet, and you will end up however many stitches you have to put in between the rows. Like here it's 1, this row it's 1. So as you progress in each row, that's how many you're going to have after that last puff stitch. So here it's 1. The next row is going to be 2. So then you'll have 2 on this side after the. So we're going to count. We got a double crochet and a puff stitch and a double crochet. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. And that is correct. We're going to turn it, and we're going to work on row 4. And now it's just the same pattern. You're just increasing the stitches in between each row. So a chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and a puff stitch back in that first 1. So yarn over 1, 2, 3. Hang on, my yarn is catching. 4. And pull it through. There we go. One more to close it off. Okay. Now, when you're going to go on top of the puff stitch, this part here was just that part to close it off. Okay. I went into this part here because this was actually the stitch part. So this one here is what I went into to do my double crochet. So there's 1, and then on top of the next with double crochet 2. So now we're doing 2 after that. So in this one here, right here, now we're going to do our double crochet and then a puff stitch. Okay. And of course my daughter, you know, when I was first making that other, my shawl, she says to me, yeah, Mom, those are really cool. It looks like random little puff stitches. It's like, yeah, they're not random. I'm counting. It may look random. It does in the beginning. It looks like they're really random, like you're not even counting or having a care in the world. There we go. But as the shawl progresses, you'll see, to me, it looks like little footprints, and it's just, so here's my 2 double crochet, and then I do my next one, I do my double crochet and my puff stitch. So you can see how it's really coming along here. But as the shawl progresses, you'll be able to see, it really does look like rows of little footprints, and I think I did 4 on that. I didn't count. I'm going to have to go back and look. But this is just a sample. But you'll be able to see how you have an offset puff stitch. Every single row, you're going to have an offset little puff stitch, and then you turn it. The next row, you'll have 3 double crochet in between, and the next row is 4. Okay, so I'm going to have the stitch code chart and everything for you too. But here's how you work this lovely pattern. Here's how you start it. I'm currently on row 4. With row 4, I should end up with 32 stitches. So on the other side here, I should end up with 2 stitches past that last puff stitch. It's going to be over here. Okay, so I hope that you enjoy making this really pretty shawl. I actually have to make another one because now my daughter said, well, I never got to see it, and so now she wants it too. So I think I'm going to be making another one in the same color that I just did. It really is just beautiful. It's just gorgeous. Thank you for watching, and please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And remember, right after this part here that I'm taping here now, I'm going to show you actually working on the shawl. Okay, so if you would like to see that I'm working with that fine yarn. I just didn't know, I've had folks tell me in the past that when I try and work with a fine yarn, sometimes they can't see the stitches, but that way you can see how I'm crocheting on that too. And I found that I really love making these shawls from that. It's really beautiful. So take care. Thank you. So I wanted to show you the real yarn skein here, and then how to work this on the yarn itself, because it is quite thin and a little bit small. I thought it might be kind of hard to see the stitches. That's why I showed you with a little bit thicker yarn how to do the stitches to the shawl. But this is from a Cotton King's Twirls, and I think it's actually from Hobbi, Hobbi, and it's just called Color 1, but it's a number 2 fine yarn. It's just really 4 little threads held together. It's just a beautiful, beautiful yarn. You can see the different colors we're going to run into. But so far, I'm still into the tan, and this is how it's looking so far. And if you take a look, it looks like there's little pebbles here, or I think it's little footprints. So you can kind of see how they're a little bit, off center, just like you were going to be walking along a beach. Okay, and they just keep getting bigger and bigger through the shawl, because it starts off narrow here, and each row you add 1 stitch between your sets of stitches, so it keeps getting bigger as we go through. And of course it's going to be really pretty once the colors really start blending. So let me just show you quick here how this works using this yarn. I have an H size hook here. It's an Odyssey hook from Twirls. So here we go. Get my yarn on here. And so the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a chain 3. 1, 2, 3, yarn over. Then in that same stitch, I'll do that bobble stitch. So I have a yarn over. I'm going to do it 4 times, remember? So there's 1, 2, 3, and my yarn is hooking here, I'm sorry, and then 4. And I usually like to have my finger on it, holding the stitches so that I don't have them slip off. Turn my hook a little bit, bring it through all of the stitches and the last stitch, and then I yarn over and bring it through that stitch to kind of finish off that stitch right there. So I yarn over, and then I'm going to go right to the next stitch and just do my double crochet. So that's my first double crochet. So this here is my first set of double crochet and bobble in the same stitch. Now I'm into the row here, and I'm going to do 14 double crochets, right? So I've just done the first one on my counting row here, because it's 14 in between these bobble stitches. So here's 1, 2, 3, and you got to make sure that you get all the little threads. Look at that one here. I almost didn't pick one up. Here we go. We got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Get a bit more light yarn. 9. And I got a tangle. 10. 11. Okay, one more is going to get me to 12. Now one thing I want to show you again, remember, we're going to crochet over this one and this one. Yeah, we got to get 14 stitches. So I don't go to this stitch here. Remember, I go to that one. So here is my number 13. Because this part here was just me closing off that loop of bobble stitches, right? And then here's 14. So then my next stitch here, okay, and you can always tell because you're going to end in that double crochet that's right after that bobble, because these two are in the same stitch, right? So I'm going to yarn over, and then the next stitch I'm going to double crochet, and then I'm going to do a bobble stitch. So we're going to yarn over, insert my hook. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, yarn over, pull through, and then yarn over and go through that loop to seal it off. So I have that. So now again, I'm going to crochet 14, end up over here, and my next bobble and my double crochet would be here in this stitch here. So this is how it is to work with this thinner yarn. I think that it's a really nice pattern if you've been afraid to work with a little bit thinner yarn, because it can be, well, to me it can be intimidating, just like sometimes working with super bulky and thick yarn can be intimidating. It's a size that you're maybe not always used to working with. You know, it's not a blanket type yarn, but gosh, the results are so pretty and so flowy. I just love it. And as you can see, as I'm talking, this works up pretty quickly as I'm going along. Do I really have to count? No, because, well, you want to make sure that you count occasionally to make sure that you're not missing your loops, you're missing any stitches. But kind of once you get the pattern down, it flows along nicely. So I'm going to get this one here yet. And I have 2 more. Okay, and that was going to be not this right here, because that just closes this off. So here's the real stitch right here. And then the next one, and that should be 14. That should be my 14th stitch. See that? Because here's my bobble stitch and my double crochet in that same stitch. Now I'll be doing the same thing right here. So I'm going to do a double crochet and then a bobble stitch in the same stitch. So yarn over 1, 2, 3, 4, and yarn over and bring your yarn through and close it off. So I would continue on working this all the way around till I got to the other side, and then I'll come back, and then the next row will be 15 stitches in between each set here. Okay, so each time you're going to it'll keep adding. So here is how you work with this beautiful yarn. And the next time I'll add on to this video here, and you'll see the shawl all done. Thank you very much for watching. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Take care and have a wonderful day.